Now, what was that job, Carl?
Milking cows on the college dairy farm. And I said, I milked one old cow at home that morning before I left on Sunday morning. Milked one old cow, and I got down here, and at 4 o'clock that night, with 3 other students, we milked 40 big Holsteins. My world changed one afternoon. I talk about coping with change a lot in my speeches.
Yeah.
Well, it changed that day. And then...
and those cows were there every morning at 4 o'clock, weren't they?
Every morning and night. I mean, rain or shine. They didn't know Christmas from any other day. So we had to take turns at holidays. You know, you couldn't go home for all of Thanksgiving break or all of Christmas break. Those of us that ran the farm, we'd take turns going home and stay a couple of days, coming back, and because the cows had to be milked. So I milked my way through my undergraduate degree.
Well, and that our herd survived you.
It did.
And it continues this day. It's in a different place now than it was when you and I were undergraduates. It's out at our Meadowbrook farm.
Yeah. I got to tell you a story. When I was about a sophomore, the Industrial Arts Department had what we called the shop foreman. Now it would be a lab assistant. And the person that preceded me in that job was Dr. James Masterson. When he was a student here, he had the job. And we were working, I guess that summer, doing carpentry work and so forth. And President Martin was getting ready to move into the president's house. And the president's house needed a new set of cabinets. And that summer, Jim Masterson and I built the cabinets for the president's house. Well, President Martin would come in back and forth, and see us and say hi. And here I was a little college sophomore. And later on, many years later, I'd graduated, came back, joining the faculty, and there was a reception we used to have the faculty dinners quite often. And there was a reception before the faculty dinner for something, and Dr. Martin was there and his wife and some others. And I was a new faculty member, and I was coming back and I was shaking hands with him. And he looked around and he said, "Oh, by the way, those cabinets are still doing fine." He never forgot anything.
No, Dr. Martin, remarkable fellow.
It was remarkable, it really was. So, interesting times.
Now your teaching career at Eastern, did you start at the lab school?
Actually, I finished in the middle of the year, and I finished out that year working on my master's, and I went to Scott County.
Okay.
And I taught my first year at Scott County Junior High, the first year it opened. Now it's middle school, of course, but Scott County Junior High. And the very next year, they hired me to come back to the lab school. So Dr. Gibson then had left the lab school.
Yeah.
And they needed a new industrial arts teacher. So I came back, and I taught at the lab school then 3 years. I went on to the University of Missouri to get my doctorate because I wanted to teach at the college level, and came back. But I spent 3 years in state government and Director of Personnel Development for the Bureau of Vocational Education. Then the job I really wanted at Eastern became open, and I was fortunate enough to get it. And that's how I got back. And those were good days. I look back at some of the students I had, and I take a lot of joy in seeing them as they grew and developed and developing their careers. And what bothers me, so many of them are retired now, and I'm still working.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned Jim Masterson a minute ago. He's retired.
Yeah.
Clyde's retired. But I would suspect that when you came back and joined the faculty in that department, there would have been a sizable number of folks who had been your teachers were now your colleagues.
That's right. Yeah. Ralph Wedding was still around for about a semester, and then there's Ed Swinford, and like I said, Tom Myers, Dale Patrick, and Homer Davis, and just a great faculty. They were just a great group of people. And I guess when I was on the faculty, one of the things, I don't think people do this as much anymore, but one of the things I really enjoyed about 10 o'clock every morning, if I had the time free, was to go over to the Student Union building, to the faculty lounge, and have coffee for about an hour, then go back to work. A lot of people thought we were just goofing off when we were doing that, but we weren't.
Bob Martin was in that group that thought you were goofing off.
Yeah, he might have been one of them. But here's what I liked about it. It was people from all different disciplines coming together and sitting around there, having coffee and getting into all kinds of discussions and about different problems or our philosophy about this and that. And it was just, it was really nice, and I enjoyed that, and it was good for us to do that. You need to talk to people from other departments, other disciplines. And so that was good.
And that's something, Carl, that an institution can lose as it gets bigger and more complex.
Yeah.
Because you take that, and that space over there in King Johnson Building is still used today as it was then. The faculty club is there, and we've got a teaching and learning center that's there appended to it that Hal Blythe and Charlie Sweet, whom you know, operate, and they've got something going on campus now that they refer to as professional learning communities, and they may have a focus, but it's one way with a much larger faculty than we had in those days to accomplish exactly that same kind of cross-discipline conversation that is really very, very
it's very good.
Important.
I can remember one morning sitting there and getting into a discussion with a psychology professor. We just got into it over something about what we believed, and there's an English teacher that was always there, and he and I, we had more good discussions about a variety of things. But see, when you and I came to Eastern, we watched a relatively small teachers college basically go and turn into a major university. But when you and I started here, you might not know every student's name, but you knew every student when you saw them. If you saw them some other place, you'd know, hey, that's one of my buddies from EKU. You knew who every faculty member was. You knew what department they were in, and knew something about them generally. And we had some interesting ones, let me tell you.
We had we did have a few.
Yeah, I love them.
Carl, we had a number of characters, and I don't know if you figured this out yet or not, but by the time you went on leave, you had become one of those characters.
That's what people tell me. That's what they tell me. But you remember Dr. Kinnemer? I had two classes with Dr. Kinnemer. Brilliant man.
Well, I think, as far as I'm concerned, Dr. Kinnemer invented geopolitics.
Yeah.
Everybody else's focus on geography was physical geography.
Yeah.
And he brought politics and geography together in a most compelling way.
Yeah. World democracy and geopolitics. I remember that particular class I took with him. And I took one other, I don't remember its title, but I remember that one. And he was something else. Dr. Black, I had a class with Dr. Black. Now, how many students get to study under a physics professor that worked on the atomic bomb? Nobody knew where he was during the war. He was a brilliant man, interesting man. And he made me feel so good about myself one time in class. Well, after class, he called me and said, "Carl, you're smart enough to be doing better." And I never thought about that. The thing that Dr. Black said, he thinks I'm smart. And that really encouraged me. But I didn't think so. And I did better in his class because of that.